Welcome to the Deep Dive,
Emerald City Hockey's Seattle Kraken podcast.
All right, welcome back, everybody. As we continue with the fun August content, RJ and I today are going to be debating the best Weezer album. Now, I think it's Pinkerton. What about you, RJ? You going with one of the color releases?
Sure. Yeah, definitely. That's got to be the best.
Yeah, I have no idea why I decided to do that as a cold open today. It came to me last night, actually, and I liked the idea, and we'll call it a very, very, very late birthday present for our friend Jimmy, talking about Weezer on one of the podcasts. But it is Pinkerton. I am serious, everybody. Let us know down in the comments below, as always. Real stuff, though, this is going to be a fantastic episode of the Deep Dive. We got lots of fun stuff to talk about today. AHL stuff that we're going to get into. That's going to be very, very exciting. Lots of fun Kraken stuff, including a new coaching hire, some news about those reverse retro jerseys, and then also, you were able to be part of media availability for some of the latest Kraken, so we can kind of get, lowdown on that. And then finally, we're going to finish it off with a deep dive into summer vacation. Essentially, we're going to look at the article the Kraken released about, basically their summer review, catching up with all the players on what they've been doing over summer, and then give our thoughts on what we would do if we were NHL players and had that month to go vacation. But first, RJ, I think we need to start with a very fun and important announcement, and that is about a really awesome game coming to Climate Pledge Arena soon.
Yes, so Climate Pledge Arena will host the Women's Hockey Rivalry Series November 20th. Now, that is a kind of rivalry series they've been doing for years between USA women's hockey and Canada women's hockey. And it's technically a friendly, as you'd call it in soccer, but there is nothing friendly about it. I had the privilege of going to one in San Jose a few years back. And wow, it was one of the best hockey games I've seen. The rivalry is intense. Anyone who's watched USA versus Canada women's hockey knows just how high the stakes are whenever they play each other. No matter if it's a tournament, it's something like this, it's just always great. Tickets start, I believe, at $25 plus fees. And I firmly believe it is the best bang for your buck that you can get if you're going to go watch a hockey game. So highly would recommend going if you can. November 20th, Climate Pledge Arena. I will be there. I snagged some tickets as soon as they went on sale because I was not going to miss that. It should be really fun.
Yeah, I mean, these games are always a blast to watch. I haven't been fortunate enough to be to one in person. I can only imagine what the atmosphere is like, but just watching them on TV for years now, these two, organizations going against each other, and it is just every single time. It is like some of the best hockey that you'll see, whether it's, a world championship, an Olympics, whatever it is. Like, it is just so solid. The rivalry is so fierce through multiple generations of players now, and it is like never let up. Like, it is just one of the most special things in all of hockey that we have. So really happy that people in the Seattle area are going to have the opportunity to go and see that. I think that's really, really fun and important. All right, now for arguably the next biggest piece of news. I mean, this could be the biggest piece of news all season as it relates to the Kraken, RJ, and that is a mascot reveal. And
yes,
it didn't happen with the Kraken, but you know what? I will take a mascot reveal where we can get one at this point. And we didn't get a bad one either, as Fuego was introduced as the mascot for the Firebirds.
Yes, we finally have a mascot reveal in the Kraken organization here. Fuego. Oh, I love the name, by the way. Yes. Let's start with that. Perfect. He's a Firebird, right? I mean, that's what he's, kind of meant to be. Is the mascot for the Coachella Valley Firebirds. I mean, Dylan, what do you think about the idea of him being a Firebird? I feel like on one hand, they didn't necessarily take any huge risks as far as going way out of the box with the mascot. But I think if you're going with this idea, they executed on it about as well as you possibly can.
Exactly. I've always been a fan of the bird-based mascots because of the fun you can do with the feathers and stuff. I think it adds a different dimension than certainly the ones that are just a big-headed version of a person. Those I've always felt are kind of lazy. So I've always liked the animal ones first and foremost. I like the bird ones because especially in hockey, you don't really get a lot of them. either. So I'm appreciative of that. But I just think it's awesome. The design is awesome. The colors are like so vibrant and really pop, and it looks so good contrast with the jersey too that he's wearing. Like that's been fantastic. The logo that they use to introduce him, like the font and everything, I put it out there. I was like, that's at least better than like 13 NHL teams out there as far as like font, logo, design, everything involved. You know what I mean? Um, he looks legit. This looks like an NHL level mascot. Just conceptually, everything all the way down the board. Super into it, and I already like some of the stuff that they've been doing with him. Like, did you see the Twitter video where the guy like needs a napkin or whatever, and he goes and
Rips the
like
shirt off.
rips the shirt off, but like the shirt, obviously they like cut it and it was designed to rip off or whatever, but like it doesn't go according to plan. It doesn't rip all the way. So he just starts going to town on this poor guy. He just rips him off the chair as he's trying to rip the shirt and everything. And you just gotta love like how into it everybody involved was with that, and how into it he was. Like I'm just super excited for all the stuff they get to do with him.
Agreed. He's got a personality, that's for sure. And we're, kind of learning that as things go along. And you're right. This is an NHL level mascot, I think. It's like watching the AHL with players. Certain ones you see like, okay, yeah, this guy's good enough for a call up. I think you can say that about Fuego for sure. And one more thing we got to talk about, the shoes.
Yes.
Like those are some pretty sweet kicks he's got.
Yes, I'm not like a sneakerhead person, so I don't feel like I can like go into it too in depth or anything. But again, it adds to it, and that's like one of those little extra touches that you would expect on like an NHL level mascot, or one of the major sports, but maybe not a minor league mascot, as like they don't necessarily have the budget or the design detail or everything that goes into it. But to have that, like that's just one of those things that kind of like ascends him to the top of the AHL pillar of mascots, if there is such a thing. All right, so everybody loves Fuego. Super excited. I'd love to get like a little plush of him or something for up here.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
I got these floating shelves. I'd love to get him up here on one of them. He can join the Pokemon I've got.
And the place we've eventually set aside for a Kraken mascot one day.
Yes, exactly. This place that is just covered in dust on my shelf. All right, but he was not the only aspect of AHL news that we had from the Firebirds this past week. So why don't we go ahead and talk about the other AHL news, RJ?
Right. So this one's a little bit odd. Samuel Bucek, who you may remember, there was a report that he would sign with the Kraken a couple months ago. Then that report was kind of denied by the team. Turns out he actually signed an AHL contract right on the eve of development camp. He missed all but the last day of development camp, I believe, with some kind of shoulder injury. Maybe he was working his way back from. Didn't quite go 100% on that last day. Looked like probably injury was the cause, but just was kind of an odd situation from the start. So some news with him, he will not be playing for the Firebirds this season. He signed a contract in the KHL. Do I dare try and say this? Neftechimic HC. So anyway, signed a contract in the KHL, and all I have to go off really is Google Translate from a reporter, Tomasz Prokop. So just bear with me there, but it sounds like the contract was terminated, his AHL contract. So then he'd be free to go sign with whatever other team he wanted. I have to imagine this is probably a mutual contract termination, as these things usually are. Basically, how that works is, if a player maybe feels that a team isn't the best fit, it just didn't work out for whatever reason, the player and the team can agree to mutually terminate that contract, which I would imagine the Firebirds, if the player wanted out, you don't want to keep anyone who doesn't want to be there. So they probably mutually agreed to terminate the contract, at which point he's just a free agent, can sign anywhere. So we got some questions on basically how that works. That's how it goes. No, the Kraken don't retain his rights or anything with that, nor do the Firebirds. So if once his KHL contract is up, he just becomes a free agent again. So yeah, that's kind of the situation there. But best of luck to Samuel Bucek in Russia.
Yeah, no, hope he can find what he's looking for playing wise there. Yeah, I mean the situation, like you said, it started off kind of weird. I always just assumed it was like maybe a translation or a language issue, like because you are kind of in a way signing a deal with the Kraken, sort of, and that you're signing with the
Yeah.
affiliate of them. Like I get it that it's kind of a messy situation and stuff, and yeah, just hope he finds what he's looking for and has a good season this year. All right. So speaking of the Kraken, let's move into all the Kraken news that we have to cover this week. I think we should go ahead and start with the most recent coaching staff hire. Because I'm really excited about this, RJ. I really think this is gonna help out the team a lot this year.
I am too. And it's something we kind of noticed that maybe there was a little something, lacking behind the bench just as a group last season. Experience was a factor that was kind of highlighted in the article the Kraken put out, and maybe wanting someone with a little bit more NHL experience there. But I think, maybe the coaching staff could have been a little bit more well-rounded. And I think that's probably what Lowry is going to bring. When this hire happened, my first question was, okay, like what's he going to do? What's his role going to be? Because we know that they already have Jay Leach on staff as an assistant coach who kind of works with the defensemen. We know the Kraken already have Paul McFarland who works with the forwards. So where does Lowry fit in? And we got an answer from that from the Seattle Times. Jeff Baker put out an article, got the kind of the scoop on that. So I'll just read this quote basically about what Lowry's role is going to be. It was exactly what I was doing when I went to Winnipeg, Lowry said Monday. When I went to Winnipeg, they had their head coach, Paul Maurice. They had Charlie Huddy, who worked with the defensemen, and they had Jamie Compon, who worked with the forwards. And I kind of floated in between. On the bench, I would watch forwards, I would watch the defensemen, and I would offer suggestions. I would go through different players during the course of the game, and that was exactly what Dave Hackstall was looking for. It was something I was comfortable doing, and I looked forward to the opportunity of doing it in Seattle.
Yeah, so that really excites me. I'm going to go ahead and I probably should have done this before throwing it over to you, but we'll just real quick introduce. It's Dave Lowry's his name.
Oh yeah, good idea.
We'll do that. Most recently, he was the interim coach of the Winnipeg Jets. He took over when Paul Maurice left early on last season and finished the season with Winnipeg last year. We'll talk about that. He was a player back in the day, played 19 seasons, I believe, so a longtime player. Been a WHL coach for several teams along the way, and then had assistant coaching stints, not just in Winnipeg, but I believe also with the Flames and Kings. Thank you. That's right. Yeah, so I'm really intrigued by that because my first question was, where does he fit in? And I was kind of looking for stuff. And then, yes, good article from Seattle Times there about that. Because I do think that that's what the Kraken were missing, was someone else who could, essentially just be an extra set of eyes, an extra set of, hey, I noticed you're doing this, that could walk up to a player during a game situation, not watching film later the next day, all that kind of stuff, but while the player is still in it, and say, hey, I've noticed a couple times entering the zone, you're doing this, or hey, a couple times this guy is beating you coming back this way, or maybe with this guy is deceptively fast, let's start those transitions earlier if you're a defenseman, something like that, right? And I feel like the Kraken really missed that last year because, as you talked about, you've got Leach working with the defensemen, gotta kind of keep track of that group as a whole, can't necessarily zero in on the little things when you're doing that. Same with McFarland with the forwards. Hackstall's got to just keep track of managing the game in its entirety, rolling lines, all that stuff. So certainly he can't be involved in it. So I feel like that's a really important thing. And then just having more voices around. I do think that the Kraken coaching staff was just missing some of that. We've seen some teams, there isn't really a limit on how many people you can have around, right? Toronto's got 7 assistant coaches, it feels like, at any given time. You know what I mean? They just bring in all these people. And I do think having another experienced voice, someone who's experienced as a player, someone who went through an expansion process as a player with the Florida Panthers way back in the day, I think that's important. I think just having someone who's been around and filled different roles when coaching, whether it's been head coaching at WHL level or the NHL level, I just think that this adds so much to the Kraken and what they're going to be able to get out of their players and their players' ability to, learn and grow during game settings, I think is just the big one. I'm going to keep coming back to that, but I think that that is something that was desperately missed last year. We saw lots of times, if the Kraken started well, another team was going to adjust, and then there wasn't that like comeback adjustment for the third period from the Kraken. You know what I mean? Having someone else who can keep tabs on things and maybe pick up on those things, think about something to develop, you know what I mean, during intermissions, all that kind of stuff, I think is going to help them. And it was something that they didn't really have last year, or in the games where the Kraken just didn't start, they were never really able to come up with some sort of new thing to go with later on. So I'm excited for this. I think it's going to bring a lot to the organization. It's going to bring a lot to the on ice product, which is ultimately what he's there for. And I'm really excited about.
Exactly. I'm glad you brought up in-game adjustments because that's just something we talked about over and over. If you watched the post-game lives with us last season, that was one of the things we kept harping on all season is in-game adjustments, in-game adjustments. And it is really hard when you have just the two assistant coaches. One's got to focus on that group of 12 forwards, the other one's got to focus on 6D. It's tough to kind of get into the little details there, and that's where I think Lowry's going to do really well. I'm looking forward to being up in the press box and kind of watching where he goes on the bench, kind of how he will kind of rove between the different groups and who he'll talk to. I think that'll provide some really good insight, as far as what they're thinking. Adjustments mid-game is something I'm certainly going to be watching for as the season gets underway, as far as what he's doing during the game. I just really excited about this, and just to bring someone with that much experience too, who was basically a head coach in the NHL as recently as last season. Just great to have another voice like that on staff.
Right. And you and I know just from watching hockey or from being coaches ourselves, albeit at a much different level than
Yes,
we're
much
talking
different.
about here, there are plenty of times where you will, like, for whatever reason, when you're watching a game, you'll just kind of zero in on somebody and you'll
Mhm.
notice stuff. Now maybe it's they're drawing your focus because they're doing something that they shouldn't, or there's something going on. But a lot of times when watching hockey, especially just because it's an 82 game season, you've watched it your whole life kind of thing, like you'll just zero in on people. And I think having kind of a coach that can have the ability to just zero in on whoever they're going to zero in on that day, and then go and work with them on that individual level, instead of having to say, like, oh wow, their defense is really aggressively defending the blue line, let's all focus on entering the zone this way. The way like a
Mhm.
McFarland would have to work with a group of forwards. Having somebody who can just go, hey, I noticed that you're doing this a lot, let's maybe try doing something like this, or hey, that's really working, it caught them off guard and I don't think they're going to be able to prepare for it, let's try that again, kind of thing. I think having
Yeah.
that ability is something really valuable, and I think it is something that they missed, because like I said, that's something we pick up on watching hockey. It's there, and if you don't have someone who can take the time to communicate with the players like that, it's just a
Right.
missed opportunity.
Yeah, and again, at a very different level, but I think we experienced that firsthand. Like when we were coaching together,
Mm-hmm.
you were able to, I mean, that was kind of more your thing. You were able to go in and work with the player individually and, oh no, we're shorthanded. What penalty kill unit are we running? If there's so much going on during the game,
Mm-hmm.
I was able to like handle that sort of thing, versus when we were coaching apart, it's just too much to handle everything. And at the NHL level, there's so much more to handle
Yes.
too.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm really excited by this. Like, I'm surprised how excited I am by this, but it was that news that was going to be his role on the team that got me excited, because as someone who's, like you said, kind of been in that situation, right? We've been in that situation. I know how important that can be, and I know that that's going to make a big difference on this team this year, as so far as being something they were lacking last year. And I do think that impacted their ability to make adjustments and all that kind of stuff last year. So really, really excited by it. I want to welcome Dave Lowry to the Kraken family, all that good stuff,
Hmm.
and should be good. Really, really pumped for that one. Okay, so now let's move into the other new additions to the Kraken family. We talked about almost all of these guys last week, the new players involved and everything. I think the big thing is we talked about all the jersey numbers and all the everything last week. There was a name that was left out of that, Oliver
Hmm.
Bjorkstrand. But we do have an answer now on the jersey number for Oliver Bjorkstrand. So before we get into his media availability and everything, RJ, why don't you just fill us in on the story of discovering what Oliver Bjorkstrand's number is going to be?
Yes. So, Oliver Bjorkstrand posted on Instagram, on his Instagram story, a picture of his dog, adorable dog, by the way,
Mm-hmm.
great dog. He's I think a few pictures already with the dog
Yeah.
and Kraken things, so that's awesome. And then his hockey bag, and his hockey bag had the number 22 on it. So left us kind of wondering, hey, is that the number that he's going to wear with the Kraken? And so was wondering that. Reached out to maybe my usual jersey number source there. He didn't have anything concrete, so I decided to just reach out to Oliver on Instagram, just feel like, hey, we're a local media outlet. I see that number 22 on the bag. Is that the number you're wearing with the Kraken? And he was super nice. He got back to us and confirmed, yes, that's the number he'll be wearing. So like, how great is that too? Like, he didn't have to respond. We're just a local media outlet. He's I'm sure busy doing his own thing. It's his summer, but he was kind enough to get back to us, confirm that he will in fact wear number 22 this season. So yeah, it's interesting. I don't think he's worn that number before in any kind of junior or pro level. Because I know he wore number 28 with the Blue Jackets. He wore number 27 in Portland with the Winterhawks.
Yeah.
Do you have anything of him wearing 22 before?
Not that I can see.
Now 28, of course, is taken by Carson Soucy.
Mm-hmm.
So 28 probably wasn't really an option. 27 isn't taken by anyone.
Yeah. So interesting there, but maybe, yeah, I don't know. Maybe he always wanted 28 and 28 wasn't available in Portland, so he had to go with 27. Yeah, I'm not seeing anything about it number wise or anything. So
maybe it's something we can ask him during training camp.
Yeah. No, I think it'll be fun if he was just assigned it, if he chose it, all that kind of stuff. But just excited he took the time to get back to us and everything, confirm it, and super pumped.
Yeah, and it's consistent with everything we've heard about him. All the Columbus media has is pretty upset that he's leaving. I think they're very happy to have him around in Columbus for the time that they had him. I mean, it's just been good reviews from everyone on all accounts, and excited to have him in Seattle.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's the number of power play goals he's going to score this year.
I would like 22 just on the power play. That's that'd be pretty impressive.
I mean, I don't want to limit him to only 22 in the regular season. So
right. He's been scoring at a higher pace than that.
It's either that or playoff goals, but I think that might be a little too optimistic.
Yeah. I mean, the one thing I was thinking as I saw it on the bag, as far as a possible explanation for what it could be other than his numbers, it is 2022. Maybe they just sent him a generic one with the year on it or something. You know how the draft pick jerseys always have the year on it. Maybe that's what it was. But it's the year that he came to Seattle.
Yeah, I thought, because that was Appleton's number, right?
Yes, that was Mason. Yeah. Maybe he's just a big Mason Appleton fan.
Well, there's that aspect. I thought it was maybe that was just the bag they had lying around that they could send.
They just gave him Mason Appleton's used hockey bag.
Yeah. Hey,
oh, come on, the Kraken are better than that.
I was gonna say, if it was a trade deadline type deal, I could see that. We've seen stuff like that before, actually.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, generally off season thing, they're better than that. Agreed. But that was the first thing that popped into my head was, well, it's either he's wearing 22 or that was the only bag they had left over was Appleton's.
Yeah, no, you're right. I could see that maybe as a trade deadline thing. I mean, hey, equipment management is hard. That is a hard job, getting everything ready to go for everyone.
Well, and we know, trade deadline stuff. We just saw it this past year. I think Ricard Raquel was the best example of it, of you're just trying to get to that new city and you've got to bring all this equipment with you, and it's a freaking nightmare for these players to try to deal with, because they're just on their own and dealing with it. You're getting on a plane, right. Your equipment's getting on that same plane with you, your sticks, all that stuff. You just have to go with it. So,
and airlines don't necessarily see this every day on all their flights, all this hockey equipment.
Yeah, so I could see in a deadline setting where it was okay, he needs an equipment bag, this is just what we have, just give it to him, kind of thing. But yeah, probably wasn't going to happen during the off season. But why don't we go ahead and talk about we can talk about him more and the other new additions to the Kraken. Why don't you go ahead and give us fill us in on the media availability you were able to do with them all.
Right. So last week, we got a media availability with Oliver Bjorkstrand, Michael Kempny, and Martin Jones. So three of the new Kraken additions. And that was really fun because it's the first time we got to hear from them since joining the Kraken. Of course, they were probably all busy on vacations. You know how July and August is with hockey players over the summer, but they were kind enough to take some time to speak with the media, which was great to hear from them. So we'll start with Oliver Bjorkstrand because we've been talking about him. And first off, just he's fun to talk to. He gave good answers. Like happy to have him on the team. I liked his story about kind of how he found out about the trade. It was something that was hinted at a little bit with the reporting at the time. But yeah, he found out about the trade on his honeymoon, out in the bush in South Africa, as he was getting calls. So yeah, he got married less than a week before the trade happened. So, what a whirlwind of a week, going from your wedding to your honeymoon, out on safari in South Africa. And then all of a sudden you hear that you get traded. So, it seems like he's a pretty smart guy. He said that, yeah, he started getting some calls and kind of figured what those calls might be about. So, maybe it wasn't a total surprise to him, at least. I mean, we kind of saw the writing on the wall as soon as Johnny Gaudreau signed there. Someone had to move. So that was kind of the idea. But yeah, I mean, just on safari,
Yeah.
getting that news on your honeymoon, it's got to be tough to try and maybe shut that out a little bit and just enjoy the moment, not think about it too much. And I also want to shout out Erica Ayala from Locked On Kraken. She threw some Zulu and Afrikaans into the presser, which I thought was cool. I just started hearing them, like, whoa, nice, because she was asking about why he chose South Africa for the honeymoon and everything. So just thought that was cool. As for other stuff with Bjorkstrand, I think he really did love Columbus, because there was a Columbus reporter or two talking to him about his time in the city, and I think he really did have a connection there. I mean, he signed a 5-year deal to stay in Columbus, and I got the sense that part of him certainly didn't want to leave, as is natural, right? But I think hearing him talk about his connection to that city and how much he embraced being a part of that community, I think it's going to really work well for him here. I think he's going to love it here, and I think he'll probably embrace it in the same way once he gets to Seattle and sees certainly how loved he's going to be by the fans, by everybody here.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we know firsthand, right? Like how welcoming this community can be and everything. And so really excited for him to really get to, experience all that in person. And I'm sure he's already been experiencing it on social media plenty. Yeah, and then as far as everything else, the wedding thing was the first thing I thought of when the trade happened, because you go to his social media stuff and it's like that's all his last stuff was, like, oh yeah, I was so excited to be married, all that fun stuff, and you're just like, and then you look at the date and you're just like, oh, like that's a wedding present, I guess. Congrats. Now move, across the country. Like, that being said, I do think that this was something that was kind of floated around. We know, like you mentioned, the Gaudreau signing meant someone was going to have to leave. His name had been talked about as insofar as being that person that was going to have to leave. I got to think that, Jarmo's a pretty stand-up guy in Columbus there. My guess is he was, in contact with at least Bjorkstrand's agent through everything, and then his agent could feed him if he wanted to know things beforehand or not. Like, it's possible he might have just told his agent, look, deal with it, and then if it happens, let me know, but otherwise I'm just going to go enjoy the honeymoon, kind of thing. You never know. But I my guess is that there was for sure communication involved before the actual trade happened. Like, hey, we're involved in talks and you are part of those talks, kind of things, because that's generally how GMs want to handle this stuff. They want to keep those good relationships going. It doesn't hurt you not to do that. It's not like you're leaking it to the media. That would hurt you as far as like a leverageability or whatever, or someone else could know. But to communicate with the player, it doesn't really hurt you at all to do that. It's just a nice thing to do, and generally people are nice. So that was the big thing. But otherwise, yeah, super excited to have him back around. I remember him briefly from Portland. Like, I never had any communication with the players and stuff in Portland because I was always just down here in California. But he was arguably our best player during some of those years I was working with them. And so I was always paying attention to the media stuff. And even back then, like, you can tell this guy just gets it. He's a good person, happy person. That's always important and fun to be around. And super stoked to have him with the Kraken.
Yeah, and you could tell that too, just from the way the Columbus media was talking about, also from Yarmo's side in his interviews too. Talk about this is the toughest decision I've ever had to make as a GM was to trade this guy away. So hey, I mean that's a good sign for if you're the player, the team getting the player.
It wasn't Pierre-Luc Dubois? What?
I guess not. Oh man, you're never gonna let that trade go with me, are you?
Yeah, no. All right, but you got to hear from more than just Bjorkstrand. Why don't you fill us in on some of the other new Kraken?
Yeah. So next, we'll talk about Martin Jones. Now, we've talked about Martin Jones, coming in as the Kraken's, new backup goalie.
Speaking of not letting you live things down, RJ.
Yeah, perfect
Jones.
transition. Let's go. Yeah, I figured that would be best. So we got to talk to Martin Jones, and I thought about this a lot too because I followed him for a long time, with as being a Sharks fan and everything, and I was like, okay, what questions do I have? What do I really want to know here about Martin Jones coming to the Kraken? And I kind of settled in on two things that I really wanted to know. One, have you talked to the coaching staff for Philip, like kind of about your workload, what your role is going to be, what's the communication there? What's your role going to be this season? Because it's still a little bit unknown. And then number two, what have you been working on? Because that's the number one thing with any goalie, I think. Any goalie is always looking to improve their craft. And especially, with Martin Jones, he's had a few down seasons. What are you working on to try and get better? So on the first question, he hasn't really spoken with Philip. He checked in with Steve Briere, the goalie coach, a couple times. Sounds like he won't really get everything going until training camp, which is normal. I wasn't expecting something all that different. But yeah, sounds like we don't really know fully what the role is going to be at this point. It's something we're going to have to monitor going forward. And on the second question of kind of what he's been working on, he didn't give away too much. Basically, he didn't give away too much, but I'll say maybe the answer didn't instill me with a ton of confidence. Here's the quote, about what he's working on. I'm not going to get into too much detail about that, but there's stuff I've been working on the last few years, some structural stuff. Yeah. So, it's some structural stuff he's been working on over the last few years, I guess. Help me out, Dylan.
Yeah, I know. I'm like trying to think of a good way of like, trying to read between the lines of like, well, what he meant was this, then it's not that bad. But like, it's a rough quote for sure because, I mean, the obvious thing is you've been working on it for years and you're still working on it. And this isn't like him talking about like, oh, just being, a better person or the relationship with his significant other or something where it's one of these things that you work on your entire life, right? Like, you know what I mean? We're always growing and changing as people and working on these idiosyncrasies of ourselves or whatever. No, this is structural, which is fairly important for a goaltender, and it's something that you've been working on for years. So I get the lack of confidence that one might have after hearing that quote. That being said, I don't have a problem with him not mentioning what it is because like you don't want to give away the book on you right away, especially as
absolutely,
especially as a backup goaltender who's not going to be in there night in night out. Like it takes a little longer for teams around the league to learn that book on you. So if he is going to be making changes as he comes to the Kraken, definitely don't want anything given away yet. Let teams do their homework and try to figure that out on their own, and hopefully they some cases I've seen with backups, when the backups really don't play a lot, you can't even really do it in the course of a season. But yeah, otherwise it's, I mean, we've known he struggled. Like the struggles have been there for everyone to see now, kind of in multiple spots.
Right. And it's tough as a goalie too, when you kind of have to be reinventing things. And, so much of the game is mental too. Mm-hmm. And when you're going from one destination to another, this is third team in 3 seasons, that can be difficult too, especially, working with the different people that you're playing behind. Mm-hmm. It's difficult too. And I want to be clear too. I want him to succeed.
Yeah.
As much as, it's kind of had this negative sounding tone around, Martin Jones since he came here. I want him to succeed. I think that he has everything possible to succeed. I saw the best of what he can do in 2016, at times in 2019. I mean, he can be a fantastic goalie that can steal you games when he's on top of his game. Mm-hmm. So I want him to get back to that, and I'm sure he does too. And he's going to work very hard to get there.
Yeah. Now here's a question I have for you, and I just thought of it, so apologies for like putting you on the spot. Okay. Do you think being paired with Grubauer is going to help him do that? because at Grubauer, very fundamentally sound guy, structurally sound is what we would call him, and he likes to play his angles, likes to be conservative as far as movement in the crease, all that stuff. And I do feel like when Martin Jones has been at the top of his game, it was those times for him when he was very just like on it, and he was square to the puck, and he was able just to shut things down, and you could not beat him low to save your life and all of those things. And when he lost it was when he was starting to get a little bit more aggressive, or he was starting to move around too much and he'd get pulled out of position, those kinds of things. So do you think having somebody like Grubauer to be paired with, not only does it help from like a coaching standpoint, because as a goaltending coach you could just focus on the one thing for both guys, you're not kind of split like maybe last year you were with Grubauer and Drieger, where it's like two completely different styles of goaltender. So do you think it's going to help Martin Jones being in that environment with somebody else like that?
That's a great question. I think it will. Looking at Grubauer and Martin Jones, how they both play, you're right. It's similar styles, and having watched a lot of Grubauer last season, the good and the bad, and having watched a lot of Martin Jones, through 4 or 5 years, the good and the bad, it looks very similar in both regards when they're on their game and when they're not. And I think he could definitely learn and communicate with Philip Grubauer. And I know that Grubauer is the type of, team friendly goalie. Yeah. He's not there as, to just compete and try and bury the guy that he's working with in a goalie tandem. We saw that with him and Drieger last year. They get along very well. I think that if Martin Jones kind of wants to learn from Philip, it's certainly there, and they play a similar enough style that they can do that. It's not as easy maybe if you have like a Grubauer Drieger tandem where they just, as much as they're friendly with each other, they just play such different styles. It's hard to kind of pick things up. But yeah, I think it could be very beneficial for him, and that's why I made sure to ask the question, hey, have you talked to Philip yet? Because I know Grubauer has been around the Seattle area this summer, because he was even there at Dev Camp trying to get in and work with Steve Briere right away. I mean, you can tell how seriously Grubauer is taking this offseason and trying to get back to his top form. And so, if Martin Jones can kind of hop on that and get into it just like Philip has been, I think it could be really good for him.
Yeah, so I'm excited by that. Like I said, that's just something I just thought of, but I do think that that's going to be nice. Like you said, having them be able to talk to each other and give each other pointers of, hey, I noticed this in practice today, or even just when one's on the bench, you know what I mean, watching the other one, like we talked about earlier with Dave Lowry, being able to zero in on somebody. Backup goaltender, I mean, they got nothing to be paying attention to really, other than when to open that door. So they could really look at things, and I do think that they're the kinds of guys, they've both been around long enough, and they both seem like the kind of guys that would be able to, hey man, I noticed you're dropping your glove a little bit here or whatever during the course of a game, and can kind of help each other out. So excited for that. And then there was one more new member of the Kraken.
Yeah, I got to talk to Michael Kempny. So he's a defenseman, was with the Capitals for a little bit. He's had some injury trouble over the last couple seasons. I mean, he was a very productive blue liner for the Caps kind of around their Stanley Cup run and everything. But yeah, he's had some injury trouble. And that was, of course, what a lot of the questions were about. Just, what do you feel health-wise? What would a healthy season mean to you, basically? And he, was saying that he feels better now. He's ready to go back at it, and that he feels like he can be a productive NHL defenseman if he's healthy. And I think he almost doesn't need to say that. We can all see it, right?
Yeah.
We saw what he was able to do when he was healthy. Let's see, not a ton else there. He says he's excited to play with former teammates again. He was teammates with Andrei Burakovsky and Justin Schultz on the Capitals during his time there, so he'll know a couple guys. He'll have some familiarity with them. I guess they'll all be new to the Kraken really this season, so they'll kind of come in together and hopefully help each other out. So good to talk to Michael Kempny for a bit, and we'll see what he's able to do if he's able to kind of get that one of those last defense spots on the NHL roster, because he's one of those guys. He's going to have a really important training camp. Can you earn a spot there on the roster?
Right, and that was going to be kind of the question I was just going to pose to you is do you think that he will? I think he will. This to me kind of screams of this will be the 7th guy. And maybe he'll work his way into a starting spot. Like, I don't want to say anything. I think there's going to be a good camp battle probably for that kind of 6th starting spot, probably between him and somebody like Will Borgen. But I do think he probably, assuming he stays healthy, has kind of a leg up on a Cale Fleury.
I would think so. Yeah, I mean, for that 60 spot, I think Will Borgen being the,
Yeah.
incumbent, so to speak, probably has a bit of an advantage, and he played
Hmm.
well. I liked what I saw from him.
Agreed.
But yeah, Kempny probably going for that 7th D spot. Yeah, Kale Fleury, we saw flashes from him last season, but I think there's still some rounding out of the game that he needs to do. I think he could benefit maybe from a little bit more time in the AHL, especially, with the Kraken's affiliate now. They have their own
Hmm.
AHL affiliate. That could really benefit him. We've talked about Riker Evans maybe being someone to come up and take that job, but I think we both want to see a little bit more
Yep.
after Dev Camp.
Yep.
So yeah, I could see Kempney definitely fall into that 7th D spot, and all it takes is one injury and you're kind of in the rotation regularly. So I think there's plenty of opportunity for him there, and I think it's just a signing that makes sense for both sides.
Yeah, agreed. And I think he's, just kind of the perfect, depth defenseman that the Kraken were missing at times last season. Somebody who can be like a stable presence, who's capable of at times playing, decent amount of ice time. We're talking his last real full healthy season, he was playing 19 minutes a night for Washington. Like that's not insignificant minutes right there, and he was very effective with them. So I'm looking forward to this. I think that just having another person around who can handle some of those responsibilities is going to be big for the Kraken as they try to rebound from some of the defensive lapses and craziness that they had going on, as we just talked about, them wanting to have two more structured goaltenders, want to be square to the puck, all that kind of stuff. If you can limit some of the shenanigans around their crease and put them in better positions to succeed, it's better all the way around.
It goes a long way.
That is for sure. All right, so kind of the last bit of it's not really the last bit of news because we're going to talk about what everybody did over summer break. But the last real thing of news here is the news about the rumors, I guess. Like, I don't know that it's real news. I don't know. You can label it what you want, but the reverse retro jersey news.
Yes.
That we kind of got as a lot of these reverse retro jerseys, they're leaking, right? Like, the teams aren't announcing them yet. These are all leaks that we've been seeing
Yep.
from them.
They're leaking for some teams. Yep.
Yeah, so they've been leaking for some teams. As a whole, I'm pretty down with it. I like a lot of these. I think it's like a fun idea to bring them back. It's, as always with these, there are some real hits and some real misses. But we were all curious about what the Kraken were going to do with this, because obviously it's not like there is a franchise history that you could really draw from, right? What are you going to do? Reverse retro with an inaugural season patch? Like, whoa.
Reverse the colors on the inaugural season patch. You got it.
There wasn't much you could do. So why don't you go ahead? We did get a little bit of rumor or news about what the Kraken may be planning for their reverse retro jersey. So why don't you go ahead and fill everybody in?
Yeah, got some good insight from Aesthetics. And I just want to say, Aesthetics always does great work. I mean, he's always on it with the jersey stuff. And, when he does break something, like, very reliable source there, knows his stuff. But he released a video talking about updates for, Islanders, Lightning, Jets, Sharks, Kraken, and some other teams. And of course, the Kraken were involved in that. And there were kind of two bits of reverse retro update there for the Kraken. So the jersey didn't leak. We don't know exactly what it's going to be, but a couple interesting points here. So the video said the jersey won't be based on the Seattle Metropolitans, and added that he thought the team may be saving that for a, quote, very special occasion. So as some of our followers on Twitter have pointed out, maybe that means Stadium Series game. That would be nice. Also, I mean, the latest that I know on the Metropolitans brand and everything is that somebody else owns the rights to that. And I haven't heard anything to suggest that the Kraken have been able to license that or own that. So maybe they're still waiting on that as well. I wasn't expecting it for this reverse retro, but good to know it won't be the Metropolitans. And I think that's probably for the best. I think you'd want to save that for an actual vintage third jersey rather than a reverse retro. And then the second bit of news is sources say it's based on a PCHL and WHL team from the 40s and 50s. Now, that team had a few different names over the years, so it's kind of hard to pin down where they're going with it. The names included the Iron Men, the Bombers, the Americans, and the Totems, of course. I know that one's quite well known and popular with people here. So hard to tell what direction they're actually going with it. A lot of different options. But yeah, we'll see where they go. They have plenty to work with, I think. Certainly with that team following them around, 4 team names, a bunch of different jersey designs. Like what do you think? Is there a direction you would go, Dylan? I'm just curious your thoughts on all of this, really.
Yeah, so I in large part agree with you on the Metropolitans thing. Like I want that to be more of like a featured aspect of the Kraken every year. You know, we got the news that Adidas is looking to kind of get out of the NHL business, it sounds like now. So I would hate for like this kind of really specific Adidas thing to get lost and it be the Metropolitans. You know what I mean? Because, you know, first American team to win the Stanley Cup, all that stuff. It's really important to this idea of, hey, Seattle isn't new to hockey. We've got this really important heritage and everything. I want that to be a part of the Kraken's franchise for a very, very long time and to be a prominent part of their franchise. So I'm totally in favor of having the reverse retro be something else. As far as which and what it should be, I'm partial to the totems thing. I'm looking right now just kind of at the different logos. Have you seen the Seattle Ironmen logo, RJ?
I have not.
You need to
I'm
go.
gonna look this up
You
right
need to
now.
go look this up. The Seattle Ironmen, or as they were known, the bad men of the Pacific Coast, is already one of the things there. It is adorable is probably the word I would use. It almost looks like
man.
a Doodle Bob gone wrong, if for the SpongeBob fans out there. But that one's an option, I guess. I don't know.
I'm just trying to figure out what they were basing this off of. It predates Doodle Bob, I'm pretty sure.
Yes, it does. I mean, Iron Man was around the superhero, but I doubt it was that.
Right.
Yeah, so that's...
You know comic stuff more than I do. Did Iron Man look like that at that time?
Kind of, yes, actually. Like,
okay, maybe that's what it was then.
Actually. The Seattle Americans isn't much better. It's basically the same design, only they gave him like a big old school Captain America shield and a hockey stick. It's Uncle Sam. It doesn't look great. I'm not gonna lie. That logo I don't think would look very good. Let me see the Seattle Bombers now. That's the last one I need to see as we do this on the fly, as everybody enjoys this. But yeah. I mean,
okay, I see the Uncle Sam with the shield and everything, holding the hand and the one stick. Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Again, like, how would you update this? Like, I'm trying to think of, like, would you update it, or are you just going to use these really dated looking logos, right? Because that's the bottom line, is that they look very dated and not in, like, a kind of classic way, like some other teams.
Exactly. And then also with the, with the Americans' colors, with, like, kind of the red, white, and blue, like, how do you, I mean, I don't know, it just doesn't feel... like the colors the Kraken should, the red, white, and blue scheme doesn't feel like Kraken.
All right, so it doesn't look like the Bombers had like a specific logo.
Okay.
As I'm looking at this, I'm not really seeing anything. I mean, it was like a plane with the 2 wings of the bomber. One says Seattle, one says
Bombers on
Bombers. Yeah. Oh, okay. Here's one. It's like a B with the hockey stick as like the backing part of the B. Oh, no, that's the Breakers, excuse me. Yeah, the Bombers didn't have a logo on their jersey. They were just green and like an ivory color, and they just had their numbers. So not much to work with there, I would assume.
No.
Although
I'd say maybe that's not what...
That would be very vintage, like NFL look, If you wanted to go with that, it just have like numbers there. So I don't know. I got to think they got to go with something with the totems, right?
Yeah, the totems the Americans, there was one jersey design. I think Aesthetics did a separate video where he kind of theorized what he thought they were going to go with. And I think he went with Americans. There was a jersey that kind of had, I don't know, this like striping like along the chest and the shoulders with some stars on it that maybe they might do.
Yeah, I mean,
so that could be another option as well.
Yeah, I was just looking at this. I mean, the American jerseys back then, they were just white jerseys. In red it said American, the collar was blue, and then it just had some red stars like up on the shoulder, and that was it. Like they were very plain jerseys, which at the time all the jerseys were pretty plain back then, so you could do something with that. But I don't know, it feels a little generic-y, and you're going with the color scheme of like 50 other NHL teams.
Right. No, I'm with you on that. And it seemed like certainly from the responses when I tweeted about this that Totems was absolutely the favorite
Hmm.
among people. But of course you do have some touchier issues there. I don't
Yeah.
know if the team would want to address that because I know if they did, they would want to make sure to
Yeah.
communicate with the relevant tribes to do it properly. Although given how the Kraken have kind of stepped up to handle things like that already. I think they're probably well equipped to do it. You're not going to see a Washington football team or Chicago
Yes.
Blackhawks type insensitivity situation here. I don't think the Kraken would ever do something like that. So I think if any team's equipped to do it, it's the Kraken.
Right.
But there still are some issues you have to navigate there.
Yeah, but we've seen them already do that with, the warm-up jerseys and stuff. You know what I mean?
That's true.
Bringing in artists and stuff from that to express the heritage and everything. Like, I think that there would definitely be avenues to do that. Like, I don't think, like, it's one of those things of, if you put in some effort, I think you could get it done with all the relevant people involved. You know what I mean? Like, it's one of
Right.
those, like generally when we've seen teams put in the effort to do it responsibly and everything, it's not an issue. And so far, all indications have been from the Kraken in the past that they are very much willing to do that. So, I mean, otherwise, I mean, yeah, I mean, you can't go with the Bombers probably. It's
I know.
a
I was gonna
whole
say that's
separate
not.
issue there.
Yeah, and I don't know, Iron Man, if you now get into, what Marvel rights and everything, it just
Yeah,
seems like that might cause you even more trouble. I don't know. But yeah, I think it's probably limited to Americans and totems.
yeah, that would be my guess too. And if they're gonna do the Americans, then you gotta, I guess, wear it when you play the Canadians.
Oh, yep. Yeah, that would make sense. Or the Canucks.
Which brings us full circle to the rivalry game.
Yeah,
Team
exactly.
USA versus Team Canada. Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see what they go with. Excited for it. Excited that the Kraken are going to take part in this like league wide
Hmm.
thing. I think that's important for the Kraken. I think that's important for their kind of league wide recognition, so to speak. Because
Yes.
like while I always enjoy hearing how great their jerseys are and stuff, just the fact that like at the draft the whole Shane Wright falling to them thing felt very much like for a lot of these other fan bases, particularly like up in Montreal, like, oh yeah, Seattle's got a team now. Wow, those are good looking jerseys. It was like, yeah, we existed last year, you know. I know we weren't great and that didn't help things, but like, pay attention to what we got going on. We got Matty Beniers. Like, everybody's like, well, they drafted this Beniers guy last year. I was like, oh my gosh, you're in for some trouble this year, guys. Like,
Yeah, exactly. And if they, come up with a jersey that looks good, which I trust they can,
hmm
I think it's something where the league takes notice. It's one of those, events where everyone pays attention, like the draft. And
yeah,
that's one thing I love about the reverse retro series too, is that every team gets one. And so you get all this league-wide focus. I remember one of the very first things I did for the ECH website was doing a review of all
yep,
31 at the time reverse retro jerseys and kind of ranking them all. And it's just something that a lot of people in the hockey world did. And to have the Kraken be part of that now is just awesome.
right. That brings up a good thing. What was the Vegas Golden Knights' first retro jersey? It's the red one, right? With the
It's the red one. Yeah, that was
yeah,
the red one.
yeah.
And I
So
think that one looks great.
yeah, it looks good. I hate the fact that it's another red jersey.
I know. I agree. I'm with you on that. Like, it don't need another red jersey, but in isolation, I think it looks great, especially with Robin Leonard, like with his setup and everything with
Yes.
that jersey with the pads and everything.
Yeah.
Gorgeous.
Yeah. But was that based on anything like historically significant for them? I don't think it
Yeah, I
was.
wasn't it
Was it?
one of the old was it the Aces or something? I know it was based on, let's see.
Because that's the only thing that would also be a thing is like I do want it to reference Seattle and and Seattle's hockey history because there is so much hockey history in Seattle that so many people aren't aware of in other markets, and so that's why you know it's important to me anyway.
No, absolutely, and I think it should be important to everyone here. There's a lot
Yeah,
of hockey history, and yeah, if you're Seattle, you have to reference that.
yeah. So all right, that's that. As we get ready to talk about the summer vacay stuff for all the Kraken members. See if you can find it. How's it going?
Yep. All right, summer vacation.
All
I
right.
mean,
So nothing on the
there was
Vegas
so
thing.
much going on. Huh?
Nothing on the Vegas thing.
I'm trying to find it because I thought I
Yeah.
mentioned it in that article. I found that old article I did, and I'm scrolling through and just trying to find where I even ranked this Vegas jersey. Trying to see if any anti-Vegas bias made into this thing.
Hmm.
I don't see it. I
All
don't
right.
see it on here. Maybe it wasn't reverse retro. I feel like it was though.
Yeah, I mean, I just Google Vegas Golden Knights reverse retro, and the red
Yeah.
jersey pops up, so it's got to be it.
All right, let us know in the comments, everyone.
Yeah, I mean, here's the NHL like article about it. It's the Thunder, the Wranglers who played in Vegas from 03 to 14. Striping's inspired by the Thunder, whose V for Vegas body stripes grace the strip from 93 to 99. The year 95 appears in the back to commemorate the Thunder's best season. Okay, so
There you go.
there was history involved, but it doesn't. But there wasn't, the logo itself wasn't
No,
history.
yeah, that's just
It
the
was just
alternate.
the
Yeah.
colors and the style of the jersey. So that's where I was getting thrown because I was like, nothing used that logo. Like,
No,
um,
you're right on that.
yeah. So I would, I guess it's possible that the Kraken do something like that. They just use they either create a new logo or use the anchor logo or something, and then just
Yeah, I could see the anchor logo
stylize it.
potentially being used. Yeah.
Stylize it. So that is something to consider if they don't want to go, straight up go with the totems or Americans or something. That's certainly on the table. If past experiences to go by. Okay, now here we go. Summer vacay stuff, fun stuff. So the Kraken put out this article on the website. It's on NHL.com, all that kind of stuff. And it's just a summer check-in is what the headline is. From traveling all over the world to swimming with stingrays, the Kraken squad have been active this offseason. Let's check in on the boys. So most of this has just been it seems like to me anyway, RJ, all the personal life stuff that you have to put on hold during the course of an 82 game season where you're traveling all over the place, because like 75% of this article is people either getting engaged or getting married.
Pretty much. Yeah. I mean, and how do you do that over the course of the regular season? You've got to just fit it in. And then when do you do your honeymoon? You just don't have that much time
Yeah.
off. So certainly makes sense to do that in the summer.
Yeah, exactly. So we already talked about Bjorkstrand earlier. The other two recently hitched Kraken members is Carson Soucy, who got married, and Alexander Wenberg, who got married. And so if you go to the article, you can see they have like the Instagram posts that they post about it, and so you can see all the fun wedding photos and everything. I love the striking Carson Soucy one with the rainbow in the background in front of the cornfield. It looks pretty good. And then
That's a great photo.
yeah, and then Wenberg, they just look like they're having the time of their lives. Like that's just a fun, like you're just excited for that couple when you see that one. So
Yep. And then also with the weddings, I've had a few false alarms too, because you follow the players on Instagram to, keep up with what they're doing. And I've seen so many like, oh, he's getting married. Like, oh no, he's just attending a wedding for
wedding, yeah.
another NHL teammate.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that too.
There's definitely a lot of that, and then we'll go ahead and cover the engagements. Those being Ryan Donato just a couple days ago, so congratulations to them, and Carson Kuhlman as well. So that's fun. Them getting engaged, and then the more relevant stuff and questions we can ask about ourselves, RJ, here as we
Okay.
have to make everything about ourselves, is the more vacationy aspects of it. Because if you're already married and an NHL player, or you're not that involved with someone, vacation, this is your only time to leave the facilities, get away from your coaches yelling at you all the time, all that kind of stuff. You basically have like a 1 month block, late July to early August, where you can do anything that you want to do, as opposed to being committed to something as part of the job. And so we got to see some of the fun stuff that those players did. Traveling the world is usually what it goes down with. Grubauer was like all over the place. It feels like they really highlight his time in Greece here as part of this one. But as we mentioned, I mean, they got a new goalie coach, and boy, he was back here real quick.
Yep. No, absolutely. And then it, of course, was at Seafair the other day.
Yeah, with Drieger.
Yeah, with Drieger. Yeah, no, he has been everywhere this offseason, racking up those frequent flyer points.
Yeah, and I think the most important thing is looking fantastic. This man's style is impeccable.
Oh, 100%. I mean, I've just look at this picture.
Yeah.
It's He's rocking it.
Yeah, he knows how to pose. He knows how to dress. It's awesome.
Yeah, the pose too. He's kind of just looking
Yep,
away,
yep,
knows exactly what to do.
exactly. Donskoy and his family have been traveling around. Obviously, some stuff in his dated Finland that I don't think we talked about, like the jersey retirement
No, we didn't. We
of
haven't
his.
talked about that, and that's yeah. Shame on us for not having talked about that yet, because that was awesome. Jonas Donskoy made a donation to save a local skate park in his hometown, and of course, grateful as they were, they raised his jersey to the rafters of the skate park, and of course, it was a Kraken jersey. So awesome to see that, Jonas Donskoy. I mean, like, come on, he just saved a skate park in his hometown. That's awesome.
Yeah, exactly. So obviously getting to visit the family, the stuff in Finland and stuff, and then here's a picture of the three of them enjoying time in Italy. That's super fun and happy for them. It's a nice looking photo of everybody enjoying themselves. Happy for that. And then Brandon Tanev swimming with the stingrays, rocking the slightly shorter hair. I know lots of people have talked about that already on the Discord, but did cut his hair a little bit. It's more my length now, so thanks for copying me, Brandon. We'll see if his hair ever looks dry this year. That's how we'll really know, or if he kind of regularly forgets to condition it and then it frizzes out, which is why mine has been in a ponytail so much recently. The humidity.
This whole thing was just your excuse to go into Brandon Tanev Hair Watch.
Yeah.
Talk about how it's your length now.
Well, also I'd like to mention, just like, look at how amazing his shoulders look in this picture of him like grabbing the stingray. Like, those are sculpted shoulders. Those look good.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, can't ignore that.
So it's also about talking about that. So that's been fun for him. He's been having lots of fun traveling around. Seems like the ocean is a big part of all of his travels. Like, I think every picture I've seen of him so far this offseason has been him in front of or in the water.
Mm-hmm.
So I like that. Definitely a man after my own heart. And then there's other stuff catching in with some of the other guys. You got, Cole Lind working on his golf game, stuff like that. Jamie Alexiak traveling, it looks like, in Italy there. Some fun stuff. McCann attending a wedding. Probably one of those false alarms that you had. Yeah. Talking about when Matty Beniers was at the Mariners game throwing out that first pitch. They got that the good photo of him looking, I don't know. I mean, every time I see him in like the photos that are like kind of stylized Beniers, I'm just like, yeah, that's a young Ron Francis.
Right?
Just looks.
You can totally see it so easily.
Yeah, it's crazy. So yeah, that's some fun stuff. You can all check it out on the article or follow them all on social media. I'm sure many of you guys already do. But it did beg the question, RJ. If you were an NHL player and you have this, 1 month window to go travel, where would you travel to?
And a lot of resources to kind of make the trip what you want.
You've got the means of kind of going and doing whatever it is that you'd want to do. So I just think that this is a fun question we can have, is where would you go? And I know I did give you a ton of time. I've texted you this like an hour before we started recording.
Just about. So I haven't thought about it a ton. I mean, kind of just drawing off, places that I've been that I've enjoyed. Probably Italy would be a common one for me because, I mean, the food, Dylan. The food. Yeah. It's so good.
Even I could eat there.
I know, that's true. Yeah, get some pizza made. Yeah, something we could agree on, take our summer vacation together. That'd be a good one. As far as, places I haven't been, China, China or India, the two. And I know there's lots of places to go. You could, spend your whole lifetime and never, see everything. But those would be probably on my list. How about you, Dylan? What do you think?
Yeah, I was thinking about it because I didn't spend too much time thinking about it either, because I wanted to kind of keep things fair. I think it would be probably Japan for me. And we have very different traveling experiences. You've been lots of places. I've never left the country, so we're coming at this from like two different standpoints. I think I'd probably go Japan. I mentioned it already earlier. The Pokemon on my shelves around here. I'm also surrounded by like framed Japanese Pokemon cards and stuff that I've collected and stuff. So that one's an obvious one. I think that would be a lot of fun, just because I like lots of aspects of the culture and everything. And then, I mean, it's also hard as someone who hasn't left the country not to just be like Europe, like do the quote unquote like kind of generic Europe trip and see Germany, France, Italy, England, all that kind of stuff, just because never been. But I think I narrowed it down to 3, and I don't know if this is the order, but it would be Japan, Scandinavia. Gotta go see all that fun stuff, especially because this is the time frame that we're working with, like blockwise, like we talked about. Probably not going southern hemisphere this time of year to go enjoy a winter somewhere. So this would be the time of year to do the Scandinavia trip. I feel like, as someone who was born and raised in California, and then New Zealand. Just because I think that country is beautiful. I love the accent everyone has. Everyone I've ever met from New Zealand, which has been surprisingly quite a few people, have just been like the most amazing, happy people. Like, I just feel like that would be an incredible place to go and walk around and go do like all the like, geeky, not Morgan or Connor, but like,
I was gonna say,
like
yeah.
nerdy, like Lord of the Rings stuff, and go see where like they shot all that and see the landscape, because I just think it's a beautiful looking country.
I was going to say, that's been my experience with every Kiwi that I've met. Just a super nice person. And I kind of want to go visit, just see, okay, like, what's in the water? What is there that makes them all so great? So that's a good answer. I like that one.
Yeah.
No Ireland? See the land of your ancestors?
Yeah, I mean, I thought about that, but it's just like, I don't know. Those other places just spoke to me more. Like, I envisioned more things that I would actually like want to do. You know what I mean? Like, there's the places I specifically would want to visit in a New Zealand or a Japan or Scandinavia, whereas in Ireland it would be just like, I would get there and then it would be like, okay, what's up? You know what I mean? And you know me, I am someone, especially when traveling, but really all the time, I like to have a plan, and I want to have a plan.
It's good.
So I that's ultimately what decided it. I think is those, but I want to hear everybody else's. If you had the opportunity to take a vacation somewhere, a la an NHL player during the off season, where would you go and why? Because I think we're gonna get lots of fun answers to that one.
And where could you get the best Instagram photos for? Because really, that's also what it's about.
Oh my god,
you got to post the Instagram photos. So got to take that into account.
Yes, I was talking with somebody yesterday who went ice skating down here to the Kings ice thing in El Segundo, the Kings practice facility, and apparently what they do like once or twice a month now is it's basically just like 4 influencers, and they put go-karts on the ice so that you can like go-kart on the ice and like take pictures, but like the go-karts move super slow. You can't really race anybody because it's like a small surface, but it's like clearly that's who it's there for, is just for like influencers who are all dressed up to do that. And I was just like, that's the most LA thing I've ever heard.
Totally. Oh man.
So yeah, so I don't know that I'd lead with the most Instagrammable place. I feel like just about anywhere you go in this world, you could probably find a good spot for a photo. And if you're someone like Grubauer, it's going to be an amazing photo where you look like a professional model.
Yeah, no matter where you are, you're just going to make that work. But you got to take it into account, just because, hey, you never know who might talk about that Instagram photo on their podcast.
That is true. That is true. As we just like kind of put them all on blast. But I feel like we were at least kind. They all take good photos.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
No, and good choices as far as where to go. And I mean,
yeah.
Yeah.
So, all right. That was the big exciting conclusion to this week's deep dive. I feel like we were able to make it a really good one. We had lots of news to talk about this week. I was really pumped for that. Being this far in
August, who knew?
Yeah, exactly. So excited about that. I feel like there's some good stuff we could talk about with the community now. I'm sure we'll get lots of questions about that and other things now on Discord from people. Looking forward to that, and in the comment section on YouTube. But otherwise, with that, I think we're going to see you all next time.